areas that we look at in tribal and earth-based cultures, and then you have industrial cultures.
Yeah.
And so part of the journey that's happened over the last sort of 20 years has been learning how to survive. And so what does that mean? If I know how to survive, if I can make fire, if I can be sung onto the country by the elders, and I can learn and become a cultural custodian and help hold that knowledge, then I am able to become independent from the industrial system. Most people's survival is intrinsically linked with industrial capitalism.
Yeah. Welcome to our Nature Kids and Earth Caring community. Samantha and I are super excited today to be introducing Rahm and Meleuka from Rare Earth Oils, based up in far north Queensland, but providing plant medicine and oils to people all around the world. And we are exploring the principle of obtain a yield. And we think these folks are amazing at doing that, entwined into their business, and they're going to share with us today about how they do it. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, great to be here.
Can you start off today telling us a little bit about yourselves? Like, how do you fill your day with work and play?
Well, it's a juggle. I think, as any parent would know, juggling work-life balance is always challenging. But there's this beautiful flexibility that comes with having your own business to be able to spend time with your kids. So the day is focused around the children, and then once the children are at school, then we get stuck into whatever it is that's happening at the time.
Awesome. And we see you've got some stills and amazing things happening in the background there. So are you in your laboratory, or where are you today? Is this the HQ?
Yeah, this is where it all happens. This is the lab where we make all of our organic products. So behind us is actually where we infuse the herbs. So we actually go out into the bush to wild harvest leaves to make some hand harvested eucalyptus oils, and we also do a cafe lime, a few other oils. But this is where we infuse the herbs in these drums behind us, which we combine with the oils to make all the beautiful balms.
Ooh, which we love so much.
Yeah, I think we've spent a lot of time thinking about what type of social enterprise can support our non-profit organisation. So we've been working for many years in Indigenous communities, and a lot of the focuses have been around language, culture, connecting to country, working with elders and young people, and using media and the arts as a way to engage and activate different ideas and projects in the community. So what we wanted to do is create a social enterprise that had cultural values that are in alignment with First Nations people. So we're working to develop a cultural economy based on country that's working on wild harvesting endemic species of origin. So that's the plant that grows there naturally, and it's grown there for 20 million years, and it doesn't need any watering, it doesn't need any modern type of agriculture, and so that's the dominant species that grows in a certain area. And so by wild harvesting, or indigenous ideas around agriculture involve large sections of land. So the idea that we can look into nature and find a value stream of amazing medicines is often a far better alternative than using synthetic chemistry and synthesizing from synthetic compounds. So what our business focuses around is creating organic alternatives to mainstream products. So what that means is we distill locally wild harvested eucalyptus oil, and we create an organic alternative to Vicks. We use that same eucalyptus oil to make a hot and spicy muscle rub. We also use the different oils that we make to create other compounds. So the chemistry behind it all is another question in itself, but that's the amazing thing around eucalyptus is it's one of the strongest natural antivirals in the world, and it's antibacterial and also antifungal.
Yeah, very cool. So much interesting stuff in there. Thank you. Can you share with us why you do what you do?
We've been working with Indigenous communities across Australia for many years, and by creating an independent enterprise that honours the cultural values of the elders and the land we're on means that we're able to create a conscious economy based on country. based on the traditional medicines, based on traditional plants that are already existing in the natural environment in great abundance. So it's the idea of indigenous agriculture instead of European agriculture. It's the idea of, is organic ethical? So just because you're drinking your soy latte that's potentially made from organic soybeans that have been harvested in the Amazon at the cost of deforestation does make it, is that an ethical choice, something to organic? So what we're trying to distinguish is the difference between organic and wild harvested. So the thing about organic is it can be done very ethically, and it's one of the best practices that's available, whereas wild harvesting focuses around identifying the species that already grow there and what sort of medicines they have.
Fantastic.
Awesome. So was that like that social impact, is that what was the driving force that created your product range? Your business kind of came around that, those values you have about connection to country and wild harvesting?
We realised instead of litigating against the federal government in high court to create social justice with issues to do around the intervention, it was better to collaborate with corporate and philanthropic partners that have the ability to support independent business development to create social change instead of relying on government funding or relying on the government at all. So what compelled us was the ability to be independent and to develop a transgenerational plan in alignment with the elders that we work with.
Oh, I just got goosebumps all over me. Yeah, that's that. And when you talk about obtaining a yield, it's like, you know, there's that physical relationship with the plants in terms of wildcrafting and creating a product, but there's these other yields that you're also producing in terms of the sovereignty and the social enterprise outcomes that are happening through the relationships that you're building, and that's amazing. So thank you for this awesome work. And did you have anything to add to that, Meleuka?
I was just thinking, as you said that, I was thinking how it did all come about in a literal sense, because we had this idea and this vision to, you know, create that independence. And we were actually working a lot down in Sydney at the time with some corporates, and we were doing fundraising, and we had this idea to create this independent model, or like a social enterprise model. And we actually were working with the Westpac Banking Foundation. They had this mentoring group. And we met the lady and we had this idea. We wanted to do something that was, you know, still earth-based, still working out on country. And she said, oh, I know this man up in Cairns, and he has a still, like a distillation unit, and he's selling it. And we said, well, we're from Cairns. And the whole thing, like how it even evolved, like just getting that still. And then we went and learned how to distill with one of these elders out on country. And that was really beautiful experience too. But just the way it all unfolded was, it was very beautiful. It happened very organically, and it makes me feel, it was just meant to happen. It was a nice process.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, it's really beautiful that you guys hold that space up here, like your product range and your connection and place in the community. And even like can you go into a little bit about the bikes? And you've got this other aspect of your social enterprise that's also providing a whole lot of yields for community too. So are you happy to share on that as well?
Yeah, Rahm can probably share better on that, but that program's been running for a while in many iterations. But it's a strong one. It's been very good.
It's about looking around you and finding the value stream that exists. And so we've been working, we started this project in the desert in maybe 2007. And we're working with young people, rebuilding a youth center in a small community. And we were going to the rubbish dump every day to get the metal, to weld new doors up. And the whole community came together and helped rebuild this youth center. And so once we finished rebuilding the youth center, we were going and collecting the rubbish push bikes from the rubbish dump. So it's looking at the idea of a circular economy. And so we work with the local rubbish dumps, and we basically recycle push bikes, and then we provide free bike maintenance workshops for the community. And we reuse those push bikes and teach people how to maintain their bikes and basic understanding around bike mechanics. So these programs, we've managed to be able to work with the school, and they integrate it into their curriculum. We work with disengaged people, and then the school then provides the value chain from the dump, and they're recycling the components that get put into the containers and projects. So we build a mobile push bike workshop in a shipping container and take it up to Cape York and work in the community to deliver recycled push bike projects.
Excellent.
Fantastic. Yeah. Absolutely
Love
wonderful.
Yeah, we talk in this particular principle of obtain a yield about the sort of 8 forms of wealth or capital, and that, you know, this paradigm shift or a different way of thinking more holistically about what our yields are or what we can obtain is more, you know, like financial yield is sort of one spoke on that wheel or one domain in that 8. And you know, like culture is something that is of equal value as part of it, and experiential learning, knowledge, retaining and learning skills and our capabilities. These are all yields that we really could be having a higher awareness of. You know, our experience in life is not just this one linear thing about success or yields being around making money to be successful, but also this whole picture of our lifestyle and supporting supporting culture, supporting capabilities and community, and our relationships is also a yield that is something that we're giving and sharing and creating as well. So you guys are really covering all of it in this.
One of the ideas that we look at in tribal and earth-based cultures, and then you have industrial cultures. And so part of the journey of it's happened over the last sort of 20 years has been learning how to survive. And so what does that mean? If I know how to survive, if I can make fire, if I can be sung onto the country by the elders, and I can learn and become a cultural custodian and help hold that knowledge, then I am able to become independent from the industrial system. Most people's survival is intrinsically linked with industrial capitalism. And so what we are able to do, the more we learn to harmonize ourselves with the earth or survive, or it's simple as planting a seed and eating the fruit or the vegetables from your garden, and then that's a way that you can survive. And so collectively, that knowledge empowers your community. And then how do we work collectively? And then what we talk about is neo-tribalism. So it's finding a balance between the cultures. And in our modern society, we need these cultural values that the tribal societies have. And we need to create a new tribal connections in the modern age. And so we talk about a concept of economic democracy. So most people have more ability to affect their society by the way they choose to spend their money or make their money than they do from the participatory act of voting every 4 years.
Yeah, definitely, which is really covering, you know, the next question about how you use the principle in your life, obtain a yield. Is there, before we move on to the next, is there anything else that you'd like to share that you see that how this principle plays out in your life?
Yeah, it's intrinsic to every component of the business, because what needs to occur is how do you operate a business in accordance with the cultural law of the land that you're on. So that's a multifaceted, multi-layered, multi-dimensional thing across Australia and around the world. It's honoring the elders and the land, but how do we conduct businesses, or how do we understand the boundaries and the laws of those areas? And in some places where these cultures are continuous, you know, so some of the last indigenous people came out in 1985, I think, in the Central Desert, or the elders we've been working with in the desert. They've literally walked out of the desert naked, and they are the last generation of first contact.
Wow.
So we talk about the cultural continuity being able to provide us the framework of that cultural law. So, and if that's non-existent, then it's in the land, and it's next door to us in the neighboring tribe or the neighboring tribe. And so everywhere, I think, I don't know, it was 10 years ago, we did a lecture at a business college in Sydney to young entrepreneurs. And, you know, we stuck our hand up and said, how many people can, you know, recognize 3 native species of plant or the name of the indigenous tribe of the land where they live? And so out of 70 people, there was more than average, and about, you know, 7 or 8 people put their hand up. But everyone can recognize 100 brand names and logos. So it's about this understanding of how we use the media to connect to the culture, to provide that cultural framework. So if we don't know what that is, what does neo-tribalism look like? And that's what we could ask ourselves as small collectives. How do we apply this to our daily life? Well, permaculture is a fantastic example. These other types of alternative education systems or traditional earth-based cultural education systems also provide the answers of how to work cooperatively. And each society needs certain components to function well. So we could ask ourselves, if we want to form cooperatives, how do we facilitate the networks and partnerships that we can apply it in our daily lives?
Beautiful.
Building conscious relationships.
So the answer for us has been Indigenous people are teaching us, and we're very fortunate that they're able to teach us, and we're able to learn and become part of the community in different places that we've been.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, and even on the topic of wild crafting, because even with in Western herbalism, a lot of wild crafted or wild harvested plants are being over harvested, and so, you know, in terms of going into country and, you know, just harvesting is, you know, do you have a process around doing that? Like, have you been given permission, or do you ask permission each time? Do you go with an elder? What's involved in going out bush and harvesting to make the oils?
I think the key understanding is we work with different stakeholders, and what it's about is the endemic species of origin. So what that means in a certain area is this is the most prolific tree that grows there. And when you're able to talk about, you know, covering thousands of hectares, and you think that 1,000 hectares is kind of like a farm, or indigenous communities have large traditional land holdings. And so it's kind of, you need to zoom out and look at the big picture and see what nature has the endemic species of origin. So we've worked with the university and done the testing around the compounds that are found in the oils. And what we've been able to demonstrate is when it's wild harvested, where it's evolved and it grows naturally, the medicinal compounds are higher than ones that are taken from there and planted somewhere else and then farmed. So you can see up to a 50% difference in the active compound based on the difference of it being wild harvested or farmed potentially.
I remember in the early days when we were just distilling, learning to distill and learning the species, and we actually distilled one of the species that we harvest, the river red gum, but it wasn't the dominant species. It wasn't endemic. It was like Rahm said, it was like this tree that was, you know, in an area, and we thought we'd do, you know, an opportunistic harvest, but the oil, like the medicine wasn't as good. You could even just the smell and the look of it, like it really does make a big difference. And like when you talk about that farming and they do big plantations, and it's I think there is a real benefit to the wild harvesting. You are really getting the best medicine from that oil, from that species.
But it's also taken us 10 years to be at a position now where we're now able to invest with indigenous businesses. So that's the goal of this enterprise, is to be able to create a robust system that can engage with indigenous people to produce medicines from their traditional lands by understanding these principles of either distilling, infusing. And so we also use all Ayurvedic medicine and European herbal medicine. So all of us as a global society have traditional plant-based medicines. 97% of modern medicines are based upon organic chemistry and plants. So the question is it better to get them from nature or to synthesize them from other components? So what we're able to do now is combine different cultural medicines to create the best product we're able to in our various product ranges and oils and balms. But now that gives us the ability that after 10 years, we're fully independent. Now we need to develop stronger partnerships in community. So that's one of the things we invite communities to get in touch with us. And we're now able to start helping develop the information that they can own the intellectual property around their traditional medicines. So there's a really important issue around intellectual property here. And so
what, just before you go into that, what that means is where we'd like to be and where we're getting to after 10 years is we're getting to a point where we will be able to help facilitate family groups or, you know, community groups, but also family groups to be able to work out on their country, set them up with a small still, teach them how to distill, you know, they can be out there working as they need in a cultural way, harvesting oil, and then there's a guaranteed, you know, supply route where we can buy the oil from them, and then we can always help, you know, support wherever is needed. But if we could, roll out with, you know, a suite of small stills across community to work with family groups that are ready, you know, and then there's lots of other ways we can support them with the protection of their cultural medicines. And, you know, that is what he was about to launch into, is a really massive topic. And a lot more support needs to be given to these elders, in particular, this biopiracy that goes on. You know, they do need support to help protect that medicine information.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yes.
Awesome. So it's like your vehicle now has the capacity to help obtain more yields, like you're kind of fractaling out into, you know, training and, well, not training, but providing the resources to these families and tribes.
we don't require any other permission except for the traditional owners.
Yeah.
Whereas in the past, a lot of organizations, we've had to leverage the support of philanthropic, corporate, or government. Whereas the idea of the social enterprise is every value within it. It's a vertically integrated social enterprise. So our core business needs to be ethical. And then now the outcomes are, we can do pushback programs again now, which is heaps of fun. But also we're about building and supporting social philanthropists and indigenous entrepreneurs, because you know, it was the belief from a few people that helped us in the beginning in the corporate media sector that allowed us, that aspirated our wildest dreams. And so that allows us to achieve things that sometimes you might have the wildest dream, but unless other people dream it with you or believe in that dream, then it's hard to manifest it.
Yeah.
So we've been fortunate in our core focus really wants to be with endangered languages and culture and using media. So the idea of the 100 Nation tour and the media bus that we've created some time ago is to really, how do we fund that independently ongoing? So what we're really about is trying to help empower Indigenous communities through Indigenous media organizations or direct family cultural projects. So that's what's compelled us over the years, is that transmission of cultural knowledge, and then the capacity to independently fund businesses that support people to connect to country. And that way it becomes continuous and not just cyclic around the funding or the media cycle.
And that was a big emphasis about, like, when we were starting this social enterprise, the rare earth oils, because we'd been working in that not-for-profit sector with with the foundation, you know, for many years, and that real dream of being independent and not having to work in those cycles, like he said, and always at the whim of, you know, some government agencies' crazy decisions. But that whole emphasis of setting up this business that can support these programs. And so that program he's talking about, the 100 Nations tour, and the cultural, you know, helping, you know, with the languages and the culture, is really what rare earth oils is moving towards, to be able to help fund those sort of programs and create that independence.
So after 20 years, we're like, well, how do you apply this? And so in 2012, we created the Global Elders Gathering. So this was an independent event, and that's really what we want to be doing, but you need to independently fund these activities, because we managed to facilitate an elders gathering for the solar eclipse. We had 70 elders come from around Australia, around the world, 20 future leaders and independent NGOs. So we basically modified a UN refugee tent design and made it out of bamboo. And we got 3 tons of advertising banners, which we got for free, that Meleuka got told to freight up for free. And we built a village on the beach.
Out of ad banners and bamboo.
And we accommodated these elders, and it was a free energy event. So it was an experiment in how do you create a free energy space. So instead of trying to be the one that's doing it using your willpower, we had to surrender to the process and go, well, this is what the intention is. This is what we've been instructed to do. But if we limit it through our capacity to create it by using our will to manifest it, then what can occur is we are only able to manifest the small amount of will that we have as individuals. When we created an event that was free, you could only come in service of an elder or be a future leader or an NGO. So everyone was in service of each other and connecting and supporting to each other. And then we had the men's and the women's group. So that's the sort of format that we want to be creating moving forward. But the reality of that is this needs to be a fully independent thing, not associated with any form of government or corporation.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do you have footage of that? Were you recording, or was that completely off grid when you did that?
No, there's lots of footage.
We filmed it. We need to do more editing and production. That's what we're working to run a business, so we can afford to sit there and edit videos and deliver the cultural messages.
I have the most beautiful stills of that, and there's this amazing video footage that one day we really need some support to help like pull that into something really amazing, because the messages from some of those elders and future leaders, like from around the world, we had some pretty amazing people there, and some of the stuff that was spoken about, and it was really important stuff, and some of it is private, but some of it definitely could be shared, and there's a real vision for humanity in that footage, you know. So but yeah, there's some beautiful stills that I could easily share with you. That's pretty magic from that.
So can people find out more information about this from your website, or can people donate to your foundation?
There's information about the programs that we run on the website, on the Rare Earth Foundation website, and some of the programs that we have run.
It's ref.org.au. So that's ref.org.au.
We'll put the link in all of the stuff so people can just click on it and find you. Yeah.
And we'll send some videos and information from the elders gathering. But that's the idea, is it creates the society to build the society. So the idea of the elders gathering is, what sort of society do we want to create in 12 generations time?
Yeah.
And so I don't know the answer, but together, the elders, the future leaders, the NGOs, and everybody else is in service to support that vision, then we can formulate it. And so the outcome of that gathering was, it's not finished and we need to do more of this. So the idea in the future is we create, the Rare Earth Sanctuary, where we can have this type of activity that's ongoing permanently. And we can also look at how do we collaborate with indigenous communities across the country to create these types of future communities that we might want to see ourselves living in.
Fantastic.
Wow, excellent. So thanks for those shares so far. We've got 2 more questions.
Yeah. So what advice could you give for our Nature Kids families about earth care?
We're interested in learning the stories of the land, and there's the songs and the stories and the dances of the land need to be sung and danced. So the way we find out about that is we go and find out the name of the traditional tribe of the land that you're living on. And so that's the first step. And then try and just say hello. That's one of the best steps. And then what usually occurs is you're able to start learning some of the stories of the place that you live. And so when you get to learn those stories and learn some of those songs and learn some of those dances, then you start to understand some of the ecology of the evolution of the place. So in Hindu cosmology, it's the yantra is the 3-dimensional manifestation of a mandala. So in indigenous culture, the artwork is living manifestations of the land and the tukulpa, or the story of those places. So the idea is that we wanted our children to have a connection to country through having a name, and they get to be born into the legacy that we create, which is being born into the culture of an understanding of how to care for the land that's being taught to us by the indigenous elders.
Yeah.
So we find that's probably one of the best things is, and that's too hard to understand. You just take your shoes off and you put your feet in the dirt and you go swimming in a creek or the ocean and you take a big, deep breath.
And have a look in your own backyard. You might have some medicine growing in your own backyard or your community gardens or your neighbor's house. Might be the lemon scented gum tree, or there's so many natural medicines that are just available everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, nature's so abundant. And yeah, to connecting, just asking, saying hello, and learning the stories. That's beautiful. Yeah. Learning, understanding our place. I always make it. Yeah. We always take a moment to breathe and to just acknowledge the land that we're on, instead of being so just there and on to the next place. And that in itself, I feel like there's a sense of welcoming and respect that you're going to follow through with picking up rubbish, even though you didn't put it there. And, just caring and noticing, having awareness for the plants and the animals and the tiny little bits of sand or whatever, the butterfly that flows past. Two people can be in the same place and experience it so differently, just based on whether they're there from a place of respect and awareness, and because they either value or and see in their identity that they are carers of the earth. And that's what we're working with families to really bring that in, that we are earth carers, and we have so much to learn from indigenous cultures.
Yes.
Like, that's the place to go to draw on this wisdom and to learn and to practice these ways. So thank you for that insight and for putting it out there for everybody to hear straight from the people who are doing it, so much so. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. But our last question for both of you. Can you share with us what you love most about nature?
I think I love how it makes me feel. It's always very grounding for me. If I'm ever having too much work, or there's too much going on, or everything's crazy and life is busy, I can just go somewhere really beautiful. I love water. I really love the beautiful creeks and the rivers. I can just put my feet in the water and lie on a hot rock and I feel better. And that's always good.
Nature healing.
Always.
Yeah.
Well, I love hang gliding. And so something about hang gliding and just walking in the bush is a similar feeling at times, is you can be in perfect harmony with nature. When you're floating above the mountains and there's nothing else to do except absorb nature and be in the moment. So nature brings us back into the moment. Nature brings us back into the frequencies of what are important, and the truth is simple. And so by connecting with nature, for me, I love hang gliding because I am at the flying there, looking at the eagles circling around below me, and I'm seeing the waterfalls and the creeks, and I'm looking at the land in a new way. So it transforms my consciousness into a childlike state. And so that can be achieved through lying on a rock. It can be achieved through swimming in a creek. But, we're lucky enough to live in the Great Barrier Reef. And so that's another beautiful thing, to be in harmony with nature, is to be snorkeling and fishing and for your food, and in harmony with nature, and trying to get enough food that we can eat. off, and nature's so abundant here between the coconuts and the fish. We can survive pretty easily.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's as simple as just putting your feet on the ground. You don't need to go into nature. If you're in the city, if you're anywhere, you just go to your local park, or you can just go into your local garden, or it's just about a focus of intention. And so nature helps us focus our intention. That's why going into nature is very good. But the idea is, how do we focus our intention without having to go necessarily into nature and take that into our busy lives? And so the Schumann resonance, I think it might be called.
What did you say?
The Schumann resonance.
The Schumann resonance. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Well, thank you for today and for sharing your time in amongst your lab and all of the things that you have going on, all of the projects. Is there anything that you wanted to say or share before we close off today's interview?
We've just started doing organic perfume workshops. So it's like a way. So there's this huge movement. A lot of people are concerned about the toxicity and chemicals in everyday household products. They're just everywhere, especially people with children, I suppose, and trying to be really conscious about that and what you do expose your children to, and you do your best. But we've been doing these perfume workshops. We've just started. They've been really great. And it's about providing people with education around essential oils and alternatives to synthetic perfumes, and how to create your own blend of essential oils that is uniquely you. And it's something that it can be very special. It's a really special process, and it's something that you can go home with. That's a beautiful perfume that you've made. And you can either base it on medicine in the essential oils or just the aroma. There's lots of ways to look at it, but yeah, it's exciting and new, and we've just changed our shop at the back to really facilitate that, and it's starting to really come together. So that's like, watch this space.
Or get in that space. It's ready to go. And if people listening haven't actually been to your amazing space on Kondu Street in Kuranda, and it's such a beautiful, like, you could just spend hours in there smelling and looking at, you've got indigenous artwork and a lot of local arts and crafts and all of your beautiful products. So highly suggest people get in there. Otherwise, they can connect with you online. Hey, you have a shop online. You can order that way.
Yeah. So there is an online a page that we're working on that will have the bookings, that you can just jump online, read about the bookings for the perfume workshops, or you can always just jump on the website to read more about all our products. And then if you are up in Far North Queensland in this region, you should definitely stop in and come and have a little muscle rub and smell some essential oils.
Good stuff.
I should have had the products here to show them. They're in the bathroom.
So that website is different to the not-for-profit that he gave earlier. So the rareearthoils.com is the social enterprise website, and that's where you can find out about all the balms and the essential oils we make and the perfume workshops.
Oh, sweet. Oh, that's good to know. There's two. So we'll put both links in there so people can find the info they're looking for.
Yes. Well, once again, thank you so much. Learned so much today. What about yourself, Rahm? Is there anything else that you'd like to share?
Thanks for being change agents. What you guys are doing is an essential part of weaving the web of our neo-tribal society. So we are responsible for creating this future society that we want to live in. And so that's the part of it is we need to use the technology with integrity. We need to connect with each other and help hold the space for each other. And so that's why these type of dialogues, the independent, intelligent media is the key to it. So stay tuned.
Love it.
Stay tuned for all that. Well, thank you for being change makers. We really appreciate this time and all of the work that you're doing in the world, and look forward to following your journey and making perfume in your next workshop.
Yes.
Excellent.
Being in community with you. Appreciate it greatly.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.